Have you ever noticed how some people wake up every morning and just do the work? Consistently, without any drama, without needing a motivational speech to get moving. They don't shout at themselves into action. They don't force it in some visible dramatic way. They just do it. And on the other side, there's you making the same promise to yourself every night that tomorrow everything changes, and every morning living the same old story. So think about it. What's actually different? Were they born stronger than you? Do they have some hidden strength you weren't given? No, the difference isn't willpower. The difference is that those people, knowingly or not, have stopped fighting their own brain. And you're still stuck in a war that was never winnable to begin with. This video is about that war. About why your brain hates discipline and how that hatred can be turned into craving. But first, you need to hear a truth that maybe no one has told you this clearly before. Most people believe discipline is something you're born with. They look at successful people and assume they simply have stronger minds, more willpower, more self-control. So when they fail to stay consistent, they blame themselves. I'm just lazy. I don't have enough discipline. But what if that belief is wrong? If willpower were the answer, why do motivated people still quit after a few weeks? Why do resolutions disappear before February? Why do ambitious people procrastinate even when they know exactly what they should be doing? The problem isn't a lack of knowledge, and it isn't a lack of ambition. It's that we've been taught to fight our own brain instead of understanding how it works. Here's the truth. Your brain was never designed to make you disciplined. It was designed for something far simpler to keep you alive. For thousands of years, that meant conserving energy and choosing immediate rewards over uncertain ones. Your brain isn't resisting discipline because it's broken. It's resisting because it's doing exactly what it evolved to do. Real discipline isn't about forcing yourself to work harder. It's about making the right choice feel easier than the wrong one. So if discipline isn't a test of willpower, what is it? To understand why discipline feels difficult, you need to understand what your brain was actually built for, not success. Survival. For thousands of years, survival depended on one rule: save energy whenever possible. Food was unpredictable, danger could appear without warning, and every unnecessary effort wasted resources that might be needed later. So the brain adapted: avoid difficult tasks, seek comfort, chase whatever reward is closest. That ancient system still runs today. Your brain doesn't distinguish between conserving energy for tomorrow's hunt and choosing to scroll instead of studying. To your brain, both follow the same logic: choose what feels easier. This is where dopamine comes in. Most people think of it as the chemical of pleasure. It's more accurate to call it the chemical of anticipation. It pulls your attention toward whatever promises the fastest reward: a notification, a short video, a snack. Instant payoff, almost no effort. Compare that to reading, exercising, or building something real. The reward is genuine, but delayed, and your brain has always preferred rewards it can feel now over rewards that arrive weeks later. That's why procrastination feels so natural. You're not fighting a lack of intelligence or ambition. You're fighting millions of years of programming built for a different world. Once you understand that, the question changes. Not why am I so lazy, but how do I work with my brain instead of constantly fighting it? This single reframe matters more than it sounds. Fighting an evolved system that's simply doing its job is exhausting, and, worse, it never actually wins for long. Working with it, designing around its defaults instead of overriding them by force, is the difference between discipline that collapses after 2 weeks and discipline that quietly holds for years. Once people realize their brain prefers comfort, they assume the fix is simple. Try harder. Rely on motivation. For a few days, it works. Then, life gets busy, energy drops, and the habits they were excited about quietly disappear, not because they got lazy, but because motivation was never built to be permanent. Every decision carries a mental cost. Psychologists call it cognitive effort, the energy required just to begin. The higher that cost, the more your brain avoids it. Picture two setups. In one, your running shoes are buried in the closet, your clothes aren't ready, and your phone is already in your hand. In the other, your shoes are by the door, your clothes are laid out, and your phone is charging in another room. Same person, same goals, but one path requires far less effort, and your brain will always drift toward the path of least resistance. This is why disciplined people often look consistent. Not extraordinary willpower, they've simply removed friction from the behaviors that matter. Your habits aren't shaped only by intention. They're shaped by the small decisions your environment makes for you before you've even thought about it. Once you see that, discipline stops being a battle of self-control and becomes a matter of design. Changing your life doesn't always start with changing yourself. Sometimes it starts with changing what's around you. There's a reason this feels almost too simple to trust. We've been sold the idea that transformation has to be dramatic, a mindset shift, a burst of willpower, a complete reinvention. But the environments of genuinely consistent people are almost boring in how unremarkable they look. Nothing heroic is happening. The hard choice was simply made easier before the moment of decision ever arrived. If your brain follows the path of least resistance, one question matters most. What path have you actually placed in front of it? Most people try to change their lives without changing their surroundings, reading more with their phone beside them. Eating healthier while junk food is the easiest thing to reach, staying focused while every notification competes for attention. Then, they blame themselves when it doesn't work. But the problem isn't discipline. It's that the environment is quietly working against them. Every object around you sends your brain a message. A phone on the desk invites distraction. A book left in reach becomes a quiet reminder. Behavioral psychologists call this choice architecture, the idea that how your environment is arranged shapes the decisions you make, often before you're consciously aware of it. Think of a supermarket. Products at eye level aren't placed there by accident. What's easiest to see is usually what gets chosen. Your daily environment works the same way. If distractions are more visible than your goals, your brain drifts toward them. So the better question isn't how do I become more disciplined, it's how do I make the right choice, the easiest choice. Leave your workout clothes where you'll see them. Keep the book on the desk, not the shelf. Put your phone in another room. These aren't tricks, they're ways of working with your brain instead of fighting it. Does motivation matter at all? Yes, just not the way most people think. Motivation is excellent at helping you start. It's terrible at helping you continue. You felt this, an inspiring video, a detailed plan, total certainty this time will be different, and then your schedule shifts. A stressful day hits, and the motivation that felt unstoppable disappears. Not failure. Motivation was never built to carry you forever. What creates lasting discipline isn't a feeling. It's a system, something that removes the need to negotiate with yourself every day. Instead of asking, should I work out today? The workout is simply part of the routine. The decision is already made. This is why disciplined people look consistent. They're not making better decisions constantly, they're making fewer decisions. Period. Important actions become habits, leaving less room for mood or excuses to interfere. As James Clear put it, you do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. Goals give direction. Systems determine whether you actually get there. A routine that depends on motivation guarantees inconsistency. A routine built into a system stops feeling like a daily battle. It simply becomes how you live. How do disciplined people stay consistent without constantly forcing themselves? They don't make better decisions, they make fewer of them. Every day your brain runs hundreds of behaviors without asking permission: brushing your teeth, locking the door, checking your phone. These don't need motivation because they're automatic. Psychologists call this a habit loop, a cue, an action, a reward. The cue tells your brain it's time. The action is the behavior. The reward tells your brain the behavior is worth repeating. The more the loop runs, the less effort it eventually takes. James Clear built on this with habit stacking. Instead of building a new routine from scratch, attach it to one you already do. After your morning coffee, read 1 page. After brushing your teeth, stretch for 2 minutes. After sitting at your desk, write 1 paragraph before opening email. These actions look almost too small to matter. That's exactly why they work. Most people fail because they focus on the size of the result. Successful people focus on the consistency of the action. Small habits, repeated daily, eventually become identity. Once a behavior is automatic, it no longer depends on motivation or mood. That's the actual goal, not forcing yourself to be disciplined, but building a life where the right action happens almost without thinking. True discipline isn't measured by how hard you push, it's measured by how little effort it takes to keep moving forward. Notice what this means practically. The goal was never to become someone who can white-knuckle their way through more discomfort. It's to become someone who needs less willpower in the first place, because the loop is already doing the work. One of the biggest myths in self-improvement. Disciplined people enjoy doing hard things. They don't. They don't wake up excited to exercise. They don't always feel like studying. They don't have more motivation than anyone else. The real difference is simpler. They've stopped waiting to feel like taking action. Most people believe emotion has to come first. I'll work when I feel motivated. Discipline runs the opposite direction. Action comes first. Motivation follows. Think about the last task you postponed. The hardest part was never the work itself, it was starting. Once you began, continuing was easier than your mind predicted. Your brain resists uncertainty, but adapts fast once it's in motion. This is why successful people don't wait for inspiration, they reduce the distance between themselves and the action. Clothes prepared. Workspace organized. The routine already tells them what's next. They don't remove the difficulty from the task. They remove the difficulty from getting started. Over time, what required effort becomes routine. What felt uncomfortable becomes familiar. Discipline stops being something you force and becomes part of who you are, not because you learned to love hard work, but because you designed your life so the right action became the easiest one. Discipline isn't discovered in one moment. It's built through hundreds of small ones. The better question was never, how do I become more disciplined? It's who am I becoming every time I repeat this habit? Every action is evidence. Choosing to read instead of scroll proves something to yourself. Keeping a small promise strengthens something far more durable than motivation: your identity. Lasting change never begins with a massive transformation. It begins with small, repeated actions that quietly become who you are. Over time, discipline stops feeling forced. It becomes your default. Not because you're stronger than everyone else, but because your habits now reflect the person you've chosen to be. That's the real difference between chasing results and building an identity. Results disappear. Motivation fades. Identity is far harder to break. When you start seeing yourself as someone who finishes what they start, who honors their own commitments, who acts even when it's inconvenient, discipline stops being a daily struggle. It becomes the natural expression of who you've become. True transformation doesn't happen when your habits change. It happens when your habits change you. And this is where the earlier chapters connect back together. The brain built for survival. The environment doing quiet work in the background. The system replacing willpower. The habit loop running on autopilot. None of it was ever really about becoming disciplined for its own sake. It was always about becoming someone whose identity no longer requires a daily argument to maintain. Before you go, one question. Not about your goals, not your motivation, about the person you're becoming. Tomorrow morning, your brain will still choose comfort over effort. That part of you hasn't changed. But now you know something you didn't before. You don't have to fight your mind. You can design it. Every small decision, every habit repeated, every promise kept to yourself, another brick in the life you're building. So tonight, ask yourself one question. If my daily habits are shaping the person I'll become, what kind of person am I creating today? Your future isn't built in a single breakthrough. It's built by the choices you repeat when no one is watching. If this made sense to you, if something in it hit home, write in the comments, "I choose my system." Let's see how many of you here are ready for this. And don't forget to watch the next video. It matters more than you think. See you there.